What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Milwaukee Sports Performance Podcast. I'm joined today by Dr. Bridget Fish. She's our newest therapist. She's joining us after having previously been working for the Milwaukee Brewers and their rehab staff for the last 3.5 or 4 years now. And she's going to walk us through some components that should be in a good post-throw routine for our baseball players. So Bridget, thanks for taking the time to walk us through some of these things.
Of course.
So let's start with maybe just 10,000 foot view. Why is a post-throw routine important? And maybe what are some key elements that should be incorporated?
That big over the top view is just that wherever you get sore or wherever you lose motion when you're done throwing is your body's way of telling you that it is not prepared for that activity. So knowing how you feel after you throw and knowing what needs to be stronger or what needs to be more mobile so that you can reset yourself and be back at a place where you can throw again next time you're expected to.
Yeah, no, I think that's key. It's one of the things, I don't know, I'm sure Mike Reynolds stole it from someone, but that I always describe as why do we do an arm care routine, something like that. It's, we want you to be you every time you touch a baseball. And if your range of motion's a little bit different, if your strength's different, if that changes over the course of the season, it's really hard to develop consistent mechanics and consistent feels if your body isn't the same every time you go.
Exactly. Pitching is that game of end ranges. So if you lose one of them, it will show in your performance every single time.
Yeah, awesome. So what are some, if you were to bucket some exercises or some maybe components that would go into a arm care routine? Obviously, everyone's going to be slightly different, but maybe some of those just big buckets of types of exercises, things you might want to work on.
I feel like the biggest thing is how the person feels after, but there's a couple things that we see most often in pitchers that we see lost after throwing. So the big three that you're going to see consistently, people will lose shoulder internal rotation, people will lose elbow extension, and then forearm supination. So being able to open up the hands this way are three of the very common ones, but some people don't. And that's where it's all about learning. But those are the big three that are consistently seen.
Yeah, perfect. No, I think that's really important to see and understand as you're starting to look at yourself. I think for players, it's important to pay attention to how your body feels. It's great if you have access to a PT, an athletic trainer, strength coach, someone like that can help monitor that range of motion for you. But if you don't, it's having an understanding of, hey, maybe some of these exercises, paying attention to how does it feel day in and day out when you do it, that you can detect, I'm tighter today than typical. Maybe I need to work on it a little bit more. Awesome. Let's maybe walk through an example of an exercise that we might be able to use with players to work on each one of those key areas.
Yeah. We'll do shoulder internal rotation first. So this doesn't feel like it's a big part of throwing mechanics, but if you think about ball release and really being able to get over the top of the ball, that is shoulder internal rotation right there. A lot of guys will complain about tightness in the back of the shoulder or something like that. But one of the exercises that I like, your arm's going to be up on the wall in this position with your hand flat to the wall. And then if you want to go ahead on the wall, so in that same position there, your focus is pushing your chest away from the wall and then rotating your arm through. People will get different stretches through the back of their shoulder there. It can sometimes, it can sometimes be intense. Let's show it on the left arm too, so we can see from both sides. It can sometimes be a little intense, but if we're feeling it anywhere, tricep, back of the shoulder, into even the lat down here, those are all positive things. This is one that works on both rotation, your shoulder, your posterior shoulder capsule, and all of the musculature back there. So it's just a good one. I have a preference towards doing it moving more consistently, just because it can get real intense if you're feeling sore post-throw. But that would be one of my favorites. Yeah.
No, that was interesting. I've actually never done that exercise before. I felt a lot through the lats, a little bit in the back of the shoulder. I don't throw a lot of baseballs, but I felt it through my T-spine.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little rotational mobility drill for me too.
It's one if someone gets a lot of neck soreness, I'll have them look as dramatically as they can as they turn to pair up that whole chain in this movement.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Okay, so that's one for if you're feeling internal rotation loss, tightness to the back of the shoulder, more than normal, or any of those other areas that we were just talking about, it might be a good exercise for you to try. Okay, you mentioned maybe supination. Do you want to look at supination next? So turn that wrist over.
So supination, this will be a lot of just that very generalized big soreness through your forearm here. Sometimes you can feel tight here, but that one's a little bit harder to catch on yourself. But thinking about more that big soreness, not feeling like you want to straighten out all the way. I'm going to have you go arm up on the wall here. Hand's going to be flat. And then your goal is to turn over into supination. This is one that if your wall feels really sticky or if it's hard to get into that position, putting your hand on a towel or like a slider can work really well. Some people will feel this really dramatically into their fingers. And if it's too intense, you can soften up how much your elbow is straightened out and turn over that way. Or you can get your arm just a little bit more in front of you. But same thing as the last one, this is a mobility exercise, not a strength exercise in any way. So doing it for repetitions and just moving through it. Usually if you lose motion after throwing, it's not a mobility issue that's been there for years. If it comes and goes, it just needs to experience that movement again. And it needs to experience repetitions of that movement to get comfortable with it again.
Interesting. Something is I'm doing this and feeling how much motion should come from like the forearm versus like externally rotating and like moving through that shoulder joint.
So it can come from both places and it will come from both places. And that's where people can use it for shoulders and elbows. I think if you focus on just the elbow, that might get more of a forearm stretch. But if we want that whole like big kind of front of the arm, front of the elbow stretch, getting into that really dramatic shoulder external rotation as well can get more intense of a stretch.
Okay. No, that's great. Yeah, I almost feel it. The first couple times I did it, I almost felt like back of my cuff even starting to cramp up into external rotation. I actually had
that like short crampy position.
Exactly.
Quick.
I actually had a hard time the first rep even keeping my hand all the way like flat on the wall.
Yeah. And that's where with those mobility ones, if it feels bad the first time, that's why I don't love sitting in them right post throw, because your body just experienced dramatic ranges of motion. So it just needs gentle. It needs to be talked into moving that direction again, and then getting to that cramp-free position and getting to the position where you can get your hand flat again.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Okay, and then the last one we were talking about was elbow extension.
This one floats a little bit more on the strength side of things, where if you can't straighten out your elbow after and you're constantly having trouble getting your elbow straight after you pitch, this is a little bit more of a strength exercise. So maybe not something that you want to do when you're super sore, but maybe you add it somewhere else in your routine. We're just going to do a bicep eccentric. So I'm going to have you get this in your left hand. This can be done with a dumbbell. This can be done in different hand positions you can mess around with a little bit. But your goal is to pick the weight up with both hands, get it to that shortened position, and then you're just going to give your body slow, controlled time to straighten out and get comfortable into that straight position again. In the same way that we're talking about just sneaking into those motions, we're using the weight that you're holding to push you into that extension. So you'll find yourself wanting to hold back if you're really not feeling great into elbow extension at first. It's okay. Keep going through repetitions. If it's getting like very uncomfortable, maybe this isn't the exercise for you. But this is one that can help you feel like you have access to that elbow extension again.
Awesome. What kind of, it's the hardest question for all of us to answer. I know ultimately the answer is the right amount. Too little won't get a stimulus, too much, you're not going to be able to control it. But how can people figure out what's too hard, what's too easy, what's just right?
There will be people that will love this one for more of that post-throw, just want to feel good again. That should feel light, like you're not working incredibly hard to lift it and control it, but just heavy enough to get your elbow straight. If you're using it and you're constantly that like elbow extension, having trouble with type of athlete, that's someone that on their strength training days, they should get up to that point where it's, I can only do 1 or 2 more good reps once you get 8 reps in the tank. So trying to go a little bit heavier, that will make you sore though. Okay. So that's where you have to plan it throughout the week. That's not a pregame activity by any means.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk prescription. How do we do? Maybe we had 2 that were more mobility-based ones, the 2 stretches on the wall. How many times per week? Is it only after throwing? How many reps should they do each time? That type of thing.
This is always the interesting question, always the challenging question. It's all about building routines. So if this is something you love and you value it in your routine and it's easy, not heavy things, you could do it every single day, mobility-wise. But if someone's going to be inconsistent every single day and it's unrealistic to do that, you want to program this in accordance with your biggest days. So the ones that are going to be hardest on your body, maybe your bullpen days, maybe your game days, when you're done afterwards, or maybe the day after those really high intent days, just going through 3x10, good 30 repetitions of some of those more mobility ones. Same thing, the bicep one, if you're doing it really lightly, just trying to do circuits of it where sometimes 10 is that magic number. Other times you just need like 15 to be able to slowly go into it. I think it's a little bit of a feel thing and understanding where your body wants to move. There will be a rep where you're like, oh, I can actually finally start turning again. And I feel like I'm in a good place here. That's a pretty good rep to go to the next exercise and come back to that one then.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I think those are really helpful exercises, some different approaches, some different buckets and a way to think about it. Obviously, these are not the only 3 exercises that should be in an arm care routine. As we always say, arm care is more than just about the arm. We're focusing on that in this video, but it's core and it's spine and it's lower body and it's your sleep and nutrition and what you're doing in the gym. All of those things play an important role for that. But we just want to give you a snapshot of, as we're starting to think through how do we build post-throw routines for players, what are some of the things that we think about. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you found it helpful and you have a teammate that is looking for a good post-throw routine as well, we'd love it if you would share it, follow along the page for more tips like this. And if you're a baseball player that's struggling with arm pain, struggling to develop a routine, we'd love to chat. You can always head over to our website, www.kineticsmp.com. Click that upper right corner, the contact button. You can actually book a call with me. And I'd love to get on the phone with you and chat through what is going on with you and see if there's a way that we can help you get more dialed in your routine and approach. Bridget, thank you very much for the time.
You.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode.